their print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Patricia, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the July 24th issue of the Tribune Sentinel, covering Niagara County and Grand Island on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. So, starting with the front page of the Tribune Sentinel, Wheatfield Eyeing Outdoor Improvements by Benjamin Joe. The financial groundwork is being set for a future project on the town of Wheatfield's only property adjacent to the Niagara River. At a recent Town of Wheatfield Town Board meeting, several resolutions were approved by the Town Board to realize plans such as habitat restoration, environmental rehabilitation, shoreline improvements, trail enhancements, and accessible fishing access dock, bicycle amenities, and other recreational improvements. The next day, Wheatfield Supervisor Don McSwain explained the property had been owned for years by the town, which had also received a grant to develop it. "We did receive a grant to revitalize the park and restore it," he said via telephone. "There's additional grants available to go further with it." The received grant, called an EPA Brownsfield Cleanup Grant, totaled $425,000 and was given by the Niagara County Brownfield Development Corporation. McSwain said Niagara County was also aware or would be aware of other grants available for the project and submit on the town's behalf. Issues involving the safety and health of the property have been tested and sampled, McSwain said. The soils were sampled and any potential environmental issues were identified, and that was what the original grant was for. As far as it being brownfield, the purpose of the grant is to take designated brownfields and bring it back, he said. The Greenway Trail, the Niagara River shoreline trail that is, runs right by it, which is perfect because people can be riding along the trail from Niagara Falls to Wheatfield and they can stop at the park. The plans could be implemented by September, McSwain said, provided the grants come through. It's going to be a town's park, so as far as use, there will be a couple of benches, a place to fish, all strictly recreational, McSwain said. Continuing with the front page of the July 24th Tribune Sentinel, Village of Lewiston to leverage insurance money into long-term solution for damaged docks by Joshua Maloney. Trustees in the Village of Lewiston voted Monday to use insurance money from the damaged waterfront docks as a 25% match for additional monies to fund a more permanent solution. We are currently receiving about $200,000 back in insurance funds for the dock repairs, Mayor Dan Cota said. The amount to repair the docks and get them in a condition and a place where we want them and need them for long-term maintenance is going to cost significantly more than that. We need to amplify that insurance money through the LWRP grant program in order to do that, but it requires a matching fund of 25%. We are going to be using that insurance money, using the grant program, magnifying it in order to get the project going. We are working very diligently with the engineers right now. The total local waterfront revitalization grants program project is listed as $800,000 with a required match of at least 25%. Should more of a municipal contribution be required, CODA was authorized to use in-kind services. In September 2020, the Village of Lewiston debuted a new multi-million-dollar waterfront that included shoreline stabilization measures and floating docks designed to withstand damaging high water levels like those seen in 2017 and 2019. But it was ice and winter weather in recent months that wrecked the dock piles and rendered the fingers unusable this summer. Those who had reserved space were given the option to get their money back or use it for future rentals. Plus, they were granted free launch passes for this season. Trustee Nick Conde asked, how would we be working at on the docks? It has to be a phased approach, CODA said. Currently, we enlisted Department of Public Works Superintendent Anthony Mang and Josh Stack, who currently does our ice boom system, to come up with a plan to remove those current fingers. Because if you do not remove them prior to winter, we're not going to even have the option to repair them without destabilizing the docks. That's the first phase, is to get all those fingers pulled, and as many of the pylons that are loose, get those pulled before they just lay down and we have to start getting them from under the water. No boom this year? Conde asked. We haven't decided on a boom at this point, CODA said. We will still have the main run of the dock there that will need some sort of protection. If Wahoo Docks, whom we engaged, then determines that needs to be protected, but the current boom structure may not be the correct structure going forward when we don't have the fingers. The Donalagan, Georgia-based Wahoo Docks created the dock system. Hopefully, we'll have the slips next year, Conde said. I anticipate that we will, in one form or another, CODA said. LWRP funding is expected to be awarded in December, January, with contracting to follow. CODA said that with the fingers pulled, we're 99% of the way there. We are not looking at replanting the current piles unless Wahoo comes in and says you have to have a pile system. At this point, that hasn't been the interpretation. A system wherein poles and docks are pulled in the fall would prevent these ongoing issues with piles that are going to continuously be jacked up based upon ice conditions in our river, CODA said. He noted the project will depend on financing. I'm hopefully optimistic that through the LWRP program and through the governor's office, which we have also met with, that we will have the support necessary to move forward. Plaza public hearing. CODA announced the Planning Commission's public hearing on the Ellicott Development Plaza's Building Number 3, first floor, space expected to be rented and operated by Ace Hardware, will be held inside the Red Brick Municipal Building Gymnasium, 145 North 4th Street. The forum is scheduled for Monday, August 10th, immediately following the Historic Preservation Commission meeting, approximately 6:30 p.m. Now, if the Recreation Department's programming for that evening is forced to move inside the gym because of weather, the Planning Board meeting will be moved to the Lewiston No. 1 Fire Hall on North 6th Street. If that happens, CODA said signs will be placed on the red brick doors and a notification will be issued on social media. Hometown Heroes back in play. CODA said the village intends to become a Hometown Heroes participant. Veterans of Foreign Wars Downriver Post 7487 was unable to reach an agreement with the previous administration to place the veteran honoring flags on municipal streets. The mayor said size and style options are being evaluated. Other news. The board voted to remove any penalties from the July 2026 water/sewer bills within the time frame of March 15th through June 16th due to recent mailing issues. 2 weeks ago, the clerk's office announced the village received reports that some residents have not yet received their July water bills due to a mailing delay. We have contacted the U.S. Postal Service, but they are unable to provide an estimated delivery date at this time. The Department of Public Works will begin milling and pothole patching. Mang also announced the DPW will offer a larger trash pickup day on Monday, August 3rd for brush and building demo, residential, not contractor debris. brush should be stacked parallel with the road. Coda said he is researching outlets that can live stream village board meetings. He expects the cost to be between $3,700 and $4,000. Bids are being collected. Cameras and microphones will be added for the sake of video quality without requiring additional speakers inside the boardroom. And finally, Art Park and Company was granted permission to extend weather-delayed concerts past the standard noise ordinance cutoff of 10 p.m. on weeknights instead of getting an 11 p.m. curfew. Continuing with the Tribune Sentinel for July 24th, some Youngstown news. Youngstown, new clerk plans to rehab gazebo by Benjamin Joe. The Village of Youngstown has hired a new clerk, Angela Skimmon. At the village's Board of Trustees meeting on Thursday, Skimmon said she was eager for the challenge. I'm excited to be here. I'm ready to help the village be more organized. It's been a while since we had a solid team, it sounds like. So I'm excited to be part of that team, she said. I'm excited to be a part of the village I live in. Following the meeting, Mayor Mike DiDario said, "We're really happy she's on board. She jumped right in and is already completing her role very well." In other news, the Garden Club said members will meet with the village's Department of Public Works to decide when the village gazebo could be rehabilitated. A painter was ready to start right away, said Garden Club member Garda O'Keefe. She noted a contractor could start quickly. There was some hesitation voiced by trustee Nicole Quarantillo. My only concern with this project starting right now is we're in the middle of the summer, she said. The park right now is just filled with kids. We have rec programs every day. If we have construction vehicles there, I don't want to see parking taken away from families who need it for their children. Quarantillo asked if the construction could wait until after Labor Day. DiDario asked DPW Superintendent Greg Quarantillo if he saw a proper timeline. So, after speaking with the Garden Club and speaking with the board, we understand there's potentially some structural issues that need to be addressed. Code enforcement, I can almost assure you, is going to make us put in some kind of barrier around it to keep kids from playing on it, Quarantillo said. I do have a concern that I did speak to the mayor about yesterday regarding starting now. I did not know your hope was to have it done by Labor Day. My thought was to have it start after Labor Day. The only reason is in the summertime you have a lot of people. Quarantillo did agree, however, to speak to the contractor. If the board so chooses, I'm more than happy, he said. Lakewood Landscaping was chosen as the contractor for $14,500. The contractor will work with Greg on a timeline that works for the village. We might not be able to start tomorrow, but it works for the village when we have all the plans, DiDario said. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Tribune Sentinel covering Niagara County and Grand Island on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're continuing with the July 24th Tribune Sentinel. Hochul announces start of $54.4 million steel repair and seismic retrofit project on South Grand Island bridges. Thruway Authority received $39 million federal grant to support projects scheduled to be completed in late 2028. Governor Kathy Hochul announced the start of a $54.4 million structural steel repair and seismic retrofit project on the South Grand Island bridges. More than 70% of the funding for the infrastructure project comes from a federal grant awarded to the Thruway Authority. Keeping New Yorkers safe means making smart investments in the infrastructure that connects our community and drives our economy. Hochul said the South Grand Island bridges are critical for residents, commuters, and commercial traffic across Western New York. and those steel repairs and seismic improvements will help ensure they remain safe and dependable for years to come. New York State Thruway Authority Executive Director Frank G. Hoare said, "The South Grand Island bridges are a vital transportation link for Western New York, carrying thousands of motorists and commercial vehicles every day. This project reflects another important investment in preserving the safety, reliability, and long-term resilience of these iconic bridges." The project includes seismic retrofits and steel repairs to both bridges to strengthen key structural elements and improve their ability to withstand seismic events. Additionally, the deck surfaces of the bridges will be treated to improve roadway surface friction for enhanced vehicular safety, particularly in wet conditions. The sidewalk on the southbound bridge will be replaced and reopened. Crews will also make repairs for catwalk access and fall protection improvements for maintenance personnel. Traffic impacts throughout the duration of this project are expected to be minimal. U.S. Senator Charles Schumer said, "The South Grand Island bridges are lifelines for Niagara Falls and the Tonawondas, connecting communities to the mainland and carrying thousands of cars every day. I was proud to deliver $39 million in federal funding from my bipartisan infrastructure and jobs law to strengthen these vital structures to withstand any seismic event. Age and deterioration have taken a toll on many sections of the bridge, and this federal funding will bolster infrastructure resilience while creating good-paying construction jobs. I'm grateful that Governor Hochul is putting these federal dollars to good use and will always fight to pave the way for a safer future for Western New York." The project is scheduled to be completed in late 2028. In 2024, the Thruway Authority received a $39 million federal grant to help fund these infrastructure investments. The funding is part of the U.S. Department of Transportation's Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation, PROTECT in short, program, which is funded through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Law. The South Grand Island bridges are located between Grand Island and the town of Tonawanda and are twin truss arch bridge spans, each carrying one direction of I-190 over the Niagara River. Construction on the southbound bridge was completed in 1935 and the northbound bridge in 1963. More than 68,000 vehicles cross the bridges daily. The Thruway Authority's approved 2026 budget invests a total of more than $600 million in capital contracts scheduled to be awarded in 2026, an increase of more than $133.5 million from the 2025 budget projected totals, and one of the largest single-year investments in Thruway history. The 2026 budget includes a historic $2.8 billion capital plan for 2026 through 2030. The 5-year plan will fund the replacement or preservation of 150 of the Thruway's 819 bridges, about 18%, and the resurfacing of more than 1,500 of its 2,800 lane miles of highway, or roughly 60%. Built in the early 1950s, the Governor Thomas E. Dewey Thruway is one of the oldest components of the National Interstate Highway System and one of the longest toll roads in the nation. It sets the standard for modern highway geometric design with safe roadway characteristics, including smooth curves, wide mediums, and unobstructed driver sight distance. Continuing with the Tribune Sentinel for July 24th. EPA, state DEC officials meet with Town of Niagara residents to address radioactivity by Terry Duffy. Officials from the Environmental Protection Agency and 2 state agencies visited with Town of Niagara residents Monday in an attempt to further explain a government-monitored radiological assessments survey now underway on certain residential properties. The session followed a July 10th gathering in a town park where 2 residents revealed news of radioactivity readings found from recent testing on their individual properties. In response to the concerns of officials from federal and state agencies, held an information session at the Niagara Falls Convention Center, where details on new radiological monitoring in the town of Niagara were presented. Representatives included NYS DEC Commissioner Amanda Lefton, U.S. EPA Region 2 Administrator Mike Martucci, State Department of Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald, State DEC Acting Region 9 Director Chad Staniszewski, EPA Superfund and Emergency Management Division Director Pat Evangelista, and Laura Smith, EPA Scientific Officer on Radiation Monitoring and Emissions. Monday's session was an attempt by government officials to further explain the new monitoring details and tell residents that corrective measures would be taken to address any radiological concerns. That said, the meeting was often an exercise in frustration and futility as angry Town of Niagara residents shared their concerns regarding radioactive contamination and chastised state and federal agencies that attempted to delve into the topic, explain remediation measures, and encourage residents to pursue assistance. "We hear you," Martinucci said. "We understand the urgency of the work. The 3 agencies, DEC, EPA, and DOH, are working shoulder to shoulder using the best science that we have available to pinpoint where material may exist and what is needed to address it." Radiological assessments. He went on to present an overview of government studies and mitigation performed thus far. The Niagara and Erie County Radiological Assessment Survey's initial focus involved 1970s-era radiological studies of Niagara County, including the town of Niagara, by the U.S. Department of Energy. Ground surveys followed in 1984, and recent studies began in the early 2020s by the DEC and EPA to determine radioactive contamination at locations not previously known, with an eye toward future mitigation measures. Phase 1, involving flyover surveys of town properties from planes 500 feet off the ground, began in 2023, followed by Phase 2, which involved additional vehicle-based studies. In summer 2025, the agencies began Phase 3, a ground-based survey of approximately 380 areas, public and privately owned, that were identified from earlier flyovers and vehicle-based studies. Attendees learned this included a broad aerial survey covering 1,000 miles of roadway studies to the on-ground assessments. We are examining specific areas in a very systematic fashion to either eliminate them from consideration or to address them based on what we find, Martinucci said. He noted the EPA surveys used specialized equipment and found that approximately 220 areas of interest were determined to be clean with no additional testing needed. The studies also found that approximately 160 ground surveys are ongoing and need to be completed. It was upon this discovery that the aforementioned waiver request letters went out to the roughly 120 individual property owners in the town, advising them of potential radiological issues and asking their consent to access the properties for more study and potential future remediation. The waiver requests ignited new fears and charges of unwanted infringement from several town residents in attendance, many having experienced the Love Canal crisis of the 1970s. This screening activity was begun in the first place with the intention of finding risk where it may exist, addressing it, cleaning it up. I understand and have heard that people are frightened tonight, Martucci said. McDonald from the DOH likewise attempted to dispel residents' concerns at the session. Residents offered harsh complaints towards State Governor Kathy Hochul, who was at separate events in the Buffalo area on Monday but absent from the fall session. It's a priority for me, and it's a priority for the New York State Department of Health, McDonald said. We're also here to support you as families and really the homeowners who have been affected by this. Our hearts go out to you. You know it's the direction of the governor. We've collected and worked with the information that's available, and we helped make the decision. We're committed to providing you clear and complete information and health-related guidance throughout the process. That's what this entire project is really about. Despite attempts by officials to assure residents, tensions among the crowd continued to escalate and at times broke into complete chaos. The session was halted momentarily at times with outright yelling, as government officials pleaded with visitors for calm. At one point, New York State Parks Police were forced to escort a few residents from the room as emotions got out of hand. Property screening. Evangelista, Division Director of Superfund and Emergency Management for EPA, also sought to calm visitors. His discussion included details on property screening, the in-depth sampling procedures, an update on the waiver request, and voluntary relocation procedures of residents if remediation is needed, plus time duration and other concerns they may encounter. There are folks in the room that don't have the same level of information as others, he said. I'm just trying to explain the process that would lead to recommendations on how to clean up the property, and I think all of you should be interested. His comments were met with continued bursts of yelling, swearing, and heated exchanges from visitors. Discussing EPA's risk assessment procedures for any contaminants, he continued, that lab will conduct an analysis of those samples. The analysis will then be processed at a risk management team at EPA in close consultation with DOH and DEC. That will lead to a report for the resident that will provide all the data and a discussion on the recommended next steps regarding the ultimate cleanup of the property. Evangelista said this process could take 2 to 3 months, ultimately leading to full property remediation work as needed by state and federal agencies, including the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. For impacted residents, it could involve a potential temporary relocation offer or other appropriate mitigation measures that would be decided on the screening. He noted that would lead to a report that would provide a summary of all the data resulting from this in-depth investigation that would be provided to the residents. It would also include recommendations for the next steps, meaning that we would do what we would do to mitigate the property. At this writing, one town resident has relocated to a temporary housing, while others are considering their options. As emotions continued, visitors were reminded once again that all officials were there that night with the intention to help impacted residents. We began this project with the goal of finding risk wherever it exists and then taking that risk and remediating that risk, DEC's Chad Stanisuski said. As to the option of temporary relocation, that's a conversation that's individual, property-based, so that you can understand your risks and ask those questions. We did not start this process to ignore the things we have found. We started this process to help residents understand where there's risk, help clean it up, and help people through the process. As the session wound up, residents were urged to remain and visit at one of the 4 tables staffed by specially trained EPA radiation experts to further discuss their concerns. Many opted to remain while others gathered outside where representatives from Save Our Backyards, Niagara, were seen offering information and enlisting support. July 10th event spurred further action. At the press conference July 10th, Niagara County Legislator Jeffrey Elder said, "We're here today to hear from 2 homeowners about their traumatic experience in the last 3 months, finding out that highly radioactive polluting material is polluting their yards and the yards of 120 other homeowners in this very area." Elder was joined by a number of environmental interests and Town of Niagara residents Carolyn Johnson and Lexi Hawk, who previously received the advisory from the state DEC that high-level radioactive contaminations had been found on portions of their properties. The residents learned the radioactive hotspots stemmed from past industrial activities in the county and western New York region, much of it related to World War II-era Manhattan Project activities. With the advisory came a request for residents to sign a waiver to permit government access and further studies of their properties, with assurances of swift corrective measure and temporary relocation if needed. The news created a firestorm in the small-knit community. Unlike the July 10th gathering, Monday's session was attended by a number of local elected officials, including members of the Niagara County Legislature. 6th District Legislator Sam Ferrugia commented on social media that he was impressed with the session. It was encouraging to see a coordinated effort focused on understanding the extent of the contamination and determining the appropriate response, he said. Ferrugia noted that roughly 30 property owners of more than 120 contacted responded to the EPA waiver letter and consented to sampling of their properties. Of these, 6 residents learned of radiation findings significant enough to warrant property relocation while corrective work is done. I would encourage any resident who has been contacted to consider participating in the sampling process, he said. For more information on the Niagara and Erie County Radiological Assessment, visit the DEC's website at on.ny.gov/NECRA or email region9@dec.ny.gov. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Tribune Sentinel covering Niagara County and Grand Island on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Continuing with the Tribune Sentinel for July 24th is an article on the Rapids Theater under new ownership, and I'll be reading a shortened version of this article. If you would like to hear the entire article, you can call 716-821-5555, and a staff member at Radio Reading Service will read the article in its entirety. Rapids Theater under new ownership. Rec Room Management taking control off 100-year-old plus venue. Selection process draws ire of local politician and businessman, by David Yarger. For about 3 years, the historic Rapids Theater in Niagara Falls has sat dormant. No lights, no camera, no action. Recently, though, the Main Street venue received a chance for an encore as downtown Buffalo Bar Rec Room co-owners Chris Ring and Dale Siegel received the keys to the concert hall. The city of Niagara Falls most recently bought the theater out of foreclosure for $800,000 in late 2024. Since then, the venue that once hosted the likes of Stone Temple Pilots, Eric Church, Snoop Dogg, Mac Miller, Fall Out Boy, and Our Lady Peace has been empty. Ring comes in with vast experience as a concert promoter. He is the owner of After Dark Entertainment, which hosts over 250 live shows across the state, including locations in Western New York, such as Riverworks, Town Ballroom, and Rec Room. Of the acquisition, Ring said, "I have extensive history booking shows at the Rapids already. I've been doing shows there since it was the Pleasure Dome, so I am super familiar with the venue and familiar with the capacity and the need for that venue in the marketplace." The 1,200 to 2,000 cap venue really does fill a void that this market doesn't have. When it shut down, the market would just lose tours. When it came back up for sale, we began looking at what the situation was and threw our hat in the ring. Ring said his goal is to turn Rapids back into a national touring destination, but also open it up to the community for weddings, fundraisers, and local events. In a release shortly after the acquisition, Niagara Falls Mayor Robert Rossano said, "To secure operators for the two anchor buildings on Main Street in such a short time is a tremendous boost in revitalizing one of the most visible business districts in our city, and we are confident that this will spur further investment and development in neighboring properties." As part of the bid, Ring also acquired 1701 Main Street. That location is on the corner just a few steps down from the theater. This space, Ring said, would hopefully be something similar to what Rec Room accomplishes now with weekly and bi-weekly programming, such as dueling pianos or karaoke, to name a few. Additionally, Ring mentioned with the acquisition, he hoped it would spark a transformation for a Main Street area that has, for the most part, been a ghost town for several years. And that is a shortened version of the article. If you'd like to listen to the entire article, again, call 716-821-5555. Turning to the opinions section of the July 24th Tribune Sentinel. Celebrating our nation's history across Erie County. Guest editorial by Deputy Erie County Executive Lisa Chimera. This month, our nation celebrated its 250th birthday, with events commemorating this historic milestone held across Erie County. Many of these celebrations were led in part by the Erie County Historical Commission, a group dedicated to preserving the rich history of our region. The celebrations continue Sunday, August 2nd, when we recognize one of the most important but least celebrated days in our nation's history, that in which 56 members of the Second Continental Congress began signing the Declaration of Independence. 716 Celebrates Stars, Stripes, and Signers is a free, family-friendly event featuring live entertainment, historical reenactors, family activities, military heritage, food, exhibits, and more, all culminating in a major waterfront fireworks spectacular. I invite all to join us from 4 to 9:30 p.m. at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park for this great celebration. To learn more, visit Buffalo Naval Park, it's all one word, .org/event/716-celebrates. Visit Buffalo is continuing to sponsor events across Erie County recognizing America 250. Check with your city, town, or village to see what's happening near you, or go to eriecounty250.com. This year is also a very special one for our region as we mark 125 years since Buffalo hosted the Pan American Exposition. In 1901, Buffalo became the center of culture, design, and innovation as crowds gathered to see great displays showcasing the new power of electricity, giving Buffalo its nickname, the City of Light. This historic anniversary will be recognized on Saturday, August 1st, with a walking tour hosted by the Buffalo History Museum, the only structure from the exposition still standing. Walk along the streets of Buffalo while learning about the grounds where over 8 million people from around the world enjoyed exhibits, shows, and feats of design. Cost is $20 per person and includes a souvenir map. To learn more and to register, visit buffalohistory.org/event/Pan American Walking Tour 3. Year-round, there is much to explore and learn about our region's rich history. Forest Lawn Cemetery is the final resting place for notable figures, including veterans from the Revolutionary War, President Millard Fillmore, groundbreaking politician Shirley Chisholm, and many more historic Americans. The cemetery is open to the public daily. Docent-led walking tours are also available on select dates for $20. Or jump on the famous Sunday in the Cemetery trolley tour for $30. For more information, visit forest-lawn.com. Erie County also plays home to many historic books and artifacts. You can experience the nearly 500,000 unique materials in a behind-the-scenes look at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library's Special Collections Department at the Central Branch on the fourth Saturday of each month. Registration is suggested but not required. To learn more, visit buffalolib.org/what's-happening. Lastly, I remind everyone to save the date for Doors Open Buffalo, presented by Explore Buffalo. This annual Choose Your Own Adventure event will take place Saturday, September 26th. Get excited about our region's architectural and historical significance. More details coming soon. I wish everyone a great rest of their summer, one that we'll surely remember for many years to come. And continuing with the opinions section of the Tribune Sentinel for July 24th. Lily effect seen in Lewiston. What is the Lily effect, you might ask? For over 10 years now, residents from the town of Lewiston have complained during the rainy season that sanitary and or storm sewer water was backing up into their basements and yards, especially residents from the Morgan Farm and Dutton Drive neighborhoods. Well, for over 10 years now, Supervisor Broderick did nothing to address this problem. Then in 2025, businessman Ed Lilly chose to challenge Supervisor Broderick and ran to replace the 5-term incumbent. Low-tax Lilly focused his campaign then and now on Broderick's liberal tax and spend policies, specifically calling out the need for real infrastructure improvements within the town. Lilly has targeted Broderick's wasteful spending ventures, such as building pavilions and pickleball courts, as well as purchasing a campground from the Boy Scouts. Today, a year later, we see town employees doing an excellent job installing and replacing sanitary sewer lines in the Dutton Drive, Morgan Farm neighborhoods. They are addressing the issues raised by Ed Lilly. Just think what may happen when low-tax Lilly is elected town supervisor on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026. Last year, Lilly beat Broderick in the Republican primary, but then lost to him in the general election. Now in 2026, Broderick holds the Conservative Party line. Wake up, Lewiston. Broderick is as much a tax and spend liberal as AOC and Bernie Sanders. So if you believe in term limits and are Democrat, Independent, Conservative, or Republican, you can vote out the 5-term incumbent, Steve Broderick, on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026. For more of the Lilly effect, vote low-tax Lilly on November 3rd. Thank you in advance for your consideration of this important matter. Signed, Harold S. Hopkins. And another letter. Kudos to Gary Hall. Reading the article about Gary Hall brought me back to my youth. First met Gary in high school. I was in 12th grade and he was in 9th or 10th. He pledged for our high school fraternity. I was his big brother. Forward a few years later, while I was volunteering in the Niagara Falls Boys and Girls Club, we reconnected. Gary was a major contributor in the Biddy Basketball League and was a member of the club's board of directors. Gary has always been a supporter of youth programs. When he built his gym in the village, he opened it up to the village's recreation department, allowing the kids to practice tennis and soccer. He has always been a champion for children. Thank you, Gary. Signed, Vince Canosa. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Tribune Sentinel, covering Niagara County and Grand Island on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, continuing with the Tribune Sentinel for July 24th. Grand Island Rotary Club supports Neighbors Foundation with summer donation. The Grand Island Rotary Club recently presented a $500 donation to the Neighbors Foundation of Grand Island to help offset expenses during the busy summer months. While many people associate food insecurity with the holiday season, the need often increases during the summer when school is out and children no longer have access to free or reduced-priced school meals. At the same time, donations typically decline, making summer one of the most challenging times for local food assistance organizations. The Rotary Club's contribution will help the Neighbors Foundation continue providing food and support to Grand Island families in need throughout the season. Modern Disposal Services 3F Conservation Society and Niagara Metals raise funds for Pinnacle Community Services. On May 30th, the Fin, Feather, and Fur Conservation Society, Modern Disposal Services, and Niagara Metals collaborated to host a successful scrap metal drive, raising funds for Pinnacle Community Services. A check for the amount of $2,695 was presented recently at the Youngstown 3F Club. Pinnacle Community Services President and CEO Laura Pennington said, "It is overwhelming how the community has come together and makes such a difference for the people we support within the community." Advancement and Communications Officer Morgan Villeneuve said, "It means a lot to us because without the community support, we can't do what we do, and it matters so much to the people that we serve that the community is behind them too, and that's what events like this show." Per its website, Pinnacle Community Services provides a wide range of services to the residents of the Niagara region. Our services assist people at every stage of the life cycle, expectant parents to parenting the young child, family help during the teen years, and help for youth and adults dealing with mental health or other chronic illnesses, domestic violence, or the everyday stress of life. Villeneuve explained, "We have 4 different major programs that all have kind of smaller programs within them. One is our domestic violence services that includes a shelter as well as wraparound supports for people who maybe don't need shelter or have had shelter but need other sort of supports, as well as for domestic violence survivors and their families. We also have a youth services program that involves a shelter called Casey House, along with programs like 3D, which is Dare, Dream, and Drive, and LEAP, which are both wraparound services that help at-risk youth grow and become members of society that we know that they can be. We also have our Healthy Families Niagara program. That's a really great program that helps a few families learn how to parent and support their children from the time that the baby is in utero until the baby is 5 years old. And then we have our Care Coordination program that helps support people with chronic mental and physical disabilities and illnesses get the services and care that they need. Donations like this one make a difference in Pinnacle's ability to provide services and support. We are fundraising all year long, Villeneuve said. We primarily operate off of grants and private funding, so being able to have sustainable sources of income all through the year is really important to us. These funds will go directly back into our programs right now. It's not that we're holding on to them. They're going to go right into use as quickly as possible because we always have to buy things and we always have to spend money. Town of Porter Supervisor John Duffy Johnston, a 3F participant, cited fellow member Colleen Gunther as inspiration for the fundraiser. He said Gunther had a bout with domestic abuse, and we wanted to do something in her honor, so we came up with this medal drive. She picked the Pinnacle House. That was her choice. There's other ones out there, but she thought that was a great choice. So we backed her all the way on that. And then our bartender got a hold of her friend at Niagara Metals and met Chuck. And then Modern gave us 3 dumpsters. We did it from 9 to 12 on a Saturday, and everybody showed up and made some nice money for it. It was all because of her. We wanted to do a fundraiser, and we just thought maybe springtime, clean out your garage, clean out your shed. The timing was perfect for it. Johnston said 3F members and volunteers collected anything and everything at the scrap metal drive. He thanked Niagara Metals and Modern Disposal Services for their assistance and generosity. Gunther said, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and in sharing my story with others, I come across so many that have their own story or know someone else affected by domestic violence. When the idea of the 3F Club doing a medal drive to raise money for domestic violence awareness group was brought up, I was so happy to be a part of it. Resources and outreach have grown so much over the years, and Pinnacle Community Services is such a wonderful organization. And I'm proud of the members of the 3F Club and the surrounding community for helping to raise money for an amazing organization and for raising awareness regarding domestic violence at the same time. Chuck Muehl, Niagara Metals Regional Sales Manager, non-Ferris, said, Diane, who is one of our longstanding employees, knows Duffy, and she heard that he was trying to plan the scrap metal drive and connected us. We were more than happy to be involved. It's a great community initiative and always a pleasure to be part of something bigger than ourselves, especially when you have few great organizations coming together to do some social good for the community. Derek Veenhoff, CEO of Modern Disposal Services, said, Modern is grateful for the opportunity to help support the Pinnacle Community Services. Pinnacle provides critical services that make a positive difference in the lives of individuals throughout Niagara County. We enjoyed partnering with the 3F Conservation Club and the Niagara Metals. Modern believes in giving back to communities, and we're pleased to contribute through our resources and hardworking team. And turning to In the News for the Tribune Sentinel for July 24th. Niagara County Youth Bureau seeks New York State Governor's Youth Council representative. The Niagara County Youth Bureau is seeking a new representative for the New York State Governor's Youth Council. The Youth Council is to be made up of 62 young people ages 13 to 21, with one representative from each county in the state. The Youth Council provides an effective way to engage young people in state government, including interacting with state policymakers. Members of the New York State Governor's Youth Council will offer their solutions to key issues facing young people in the state. The right candidate for the council is a young person who wants a platform to have their voice heard. Those interested in serving must understand the great opportunity offered upon selection and commit to the following if appointed to the New York State Governor's Youth Council. 1. Participate in virtual, statewide, youth-led networking and training events about government, civic engagement, and positive youth development. 2. Attend virtual regional meetings. 3. Work on selecting policy issues to inform local, regional, and/or state changes. And 4. Seek out, listen, and respect others' opinions and experiences. Membership is renewable for up to 3 years. For more information, reach out to benjamin.bunker@niagaracounty.gov. And a final item in the news, Niagara Falls High School 3-class reunion. The Niagara Falls High School classes of 1959, 1960, and 1961 will meet for dinner on Wednesday, September 23rd at the LaSalle Yacht Club, 73 South 68th Street. Organizers said, "We have established and reacquainted with wonderful friends. We added the class of 1959 and made it even better. We have lost some wonderful classmates and also won some too. To be able to get together once a year for dinner this year for 3 classes, it will be the last time or our last hurrah." Emails have been sent out. If alums miss them and are interested in attending, contact one of the following: Joanne Renko at 716-861-2422 or Carol Nalbone at 716-870-2670. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the July 24th issue of the Tribune Sentinel, covering Niagara County and Grand Island. We read from the Tribune Sentinel every Saturday at 4 p.m. Your reader has been Patricia. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Lockport Union Sun and Journal. Following that at 6 o'clock is the Jamestown Post Journal. And at 7 o'clock, we have the Niagara Falls Review. Stay with us for these readings and more. If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes